Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's Shannon Hebert here, Marketing Manager at Myovision. We're going to start in just a few moments. We still have some folks joining with us, so just hang on for a moment and we'll get started. All right, thanks for joining us today for our first webinar of 2021. It's a customer roundtable, and we're going to focus today on connectivity, the backbone to a smart city network. So like last year, at the end of last year, or majority of last year, we are all working remotely. We have gone through and done a few webinars over the course of the past few months. However, there are some technical glitches from time to time. So as we get going, if there's any audio or technical issues, feel free to message me in the chat. You should see the chat box to the right of your screen. In that chat box, you can also put in any questions that you may have, because during the presentation, your lines will be muted. And that's just to reduce background noise as the presenters are speaking. We're also going to be asking a few poll questions during the webinar, and this is just for us to get a better understanding of who's joining us today, and how today's topic impacts you. We won't show your individual answers. It's the aggregated results that will show after the poll question. So I thought I'd start off today by introducing the guests that we have, the presenters that have joined us today. Carl Putty, he's my colleague here at Myovision, and he works with our customers to improve the efficiency and safety of your traffic networks. He partners with engineering firms, DOTs, MPOs, elected officials, and local agencies to find solutions for their ITS projects. He's also worked on several Vision Zero initiatives, CMAQ projects, and other grant applications to help stakeholders get the most of their ITS solutions. We're very fortunate today to be joined by two of our customers, Derek Lyman, who is the Traffic Signal and ITS Manager at the Vermont Agency of Transportation. Derek's a licensed professional engineer and has worked at Vermont AOT for 14 years. He spent his first 7 years in the traffic design section, a brief stint in project management, and over the last 5+ years, he's been in operations and safety. Derek has a strong background in the area of traffic signals, and lucky for us, he is broadening that expertise into the world of ITS. Andrew Vischio, the Director of Traffic Engineering at the City of Jersey, is also joining us today. Andrew advances the ambitious transportation goals of the city and works directly with his constituents to solve their day-to-day concerns. Andrew is a licensed professional engineer who began his career in the private sector and has worked at Jersey City since 2015. He has helped Jersey City achieve the New Jersey Complete Streets Excellence Award in 2019, and he currently serves as co-chair of the Jersey City Vision Zero Task Force. We really appreciate both of you joining us today and looking forward to hearing how you use signal connectivity as a starting point to improve the efficiency and safety of your traffic networks. And now the agenda. If we can flip to that slide, just to give you a brief overview of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk in a moment about the importance of signal connectivity, then give you a traffic link overview, and then of course have Carl is going to have a little chat with Derek and Andrew, as I had mentioned, so that they can share with us the challenges they faced within their city, why they looked at signal connectivity to solve those challenges, the impact it had on their city and state, and then how having data available to them allowed them to address different challenges and initiatives within their network as they come up. So with that, we are going to go right into our first poll question. So the first poll question, as I bring it up here, is how many of your signals have IP-capable communications? So up on your screen, you can respond to that question. We'll give it about 30 seconds or so, and you can select one of these answers: less than 25%, 25 to 49%, between 50 and 74, and then of course 75 to 100%. I see the answers coming in. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll and share with you guys the results. So we have got about a pretty even split between less than 25% and those that have between 75 and 100% connected. And then we're sitting at about 24% in the in between. So that's always, it's great to see the different areas of those attending, and how many of you actually have your signals connected, and those of you that we might help in doing so. So if we go to the next slide, I'll pass it over to Carl as soon as I close out the poll.
Great. Well, thank you, Shannon, and thank you everyone for attending today. Really looking forward to going through some of these things with you today. It's good to see there's a nice kind of even split of different cities with, lots of connectivity, maybe not so much connectivity. So great to address that. And with that, we'll kind of jump into what we feel from MyoVision side are kind of the necessary blocks of building modern traffic operations and smart city infrastructure. So all of you today here, whether you're a city, county, DOT, whatever group you fall within, you probably are somewhere along this kind of building block diagram that we have here. And we'll kind of discuss how signal communications enable all of these different parts of these blocks to building modern traffic operations. So kind of at the bottom here, we have communications and signal maintenance. That's really what we see as kind of that underlying backbone of smart city connectivity, and kind of allows you to build and scale up as you go through this kind of journey here. So I guess the first piece, really talks about getting that connectivity to enable signal maintenance. So that's things that allow your maintenance and operations folks to really understand exactly what's happening with critical pieces of your infrastructure that are sitting within the cabinet and at the intersection. As you scale up from there, we're looking at things like, maybe you're adding detection, improving detection, you're looking at traffic studies. That's really, taking that connectivity piece another step further and trying to improve and optimize with these types of technologies. That could be, something like you've deployed adaptive signal technology to really improve and kind of optimize that operations of your intersections or corridors. The next piece when talking about is more data centric. So you're looking at performance measures, maybe you're looking at continuous counts or things like safety analytics. That's kind of that ongoing continued use of data and using that to your advantage and improving your operations of the intersections and corridors that you have. And finally, we kind of have this top level block called the connected smart city. That's really, when you have full blown sort of everything's working very well hand in hand. Maybe you're doing some cool things like vehicle to infrastructure, you're doing V2X, maybe you have some connected vehicle type applications where you're using, SPAT formatted generated data. to push information out to these future CV type applications. But what's really relevant is, communications plays a big role in all of these pieces, and making it easier to use all of these different portions of data that may be being collected at the intersection. So with that, I'll just jump to the next slide here. And now we're going to talk a bit about the actual MyoVision hardware and what that means for users. In both cases, our customers on the line today have deployed various pieces of our TrafficLink ITS infrastructure here. So the hardware itself is actually comprised of these devices that you see on the left side of the screen. The SmartLink device, which we'll go over first, you can think of that as a device that can be deployed standalone. You don't necessarily need to deploy the camera and the SmartSense to enable communications at your intersection. And really, the SmartLink is a turnkey managed communications box that we have. It essentially provides 4G LTE connectivity to the intersection. It also acts as a data aggregation device to pull a plethora of information from the cabinet itself. We get information from things like existing detection if you have it. We get all the high-res SPAT data from the controller that's there to understand exactly what's happening. The information that's collected there also then goes back into the TrafficLink software platform, or it can go back into your existing kind of central management system, which we'll talk a bit about further. But essentially, it's a data aggregation device to give you those kind of actionable insights into what's happening real time amongst your signal network. The device there, it actually comes with a small, it's a ruggedized traffic antenna that goes on top of the cabinet. That does a number of things as well. It boosts our communications LTE bandwidth there, and then it also provides things like unique Wi-Fi MAC address capture for travel time. So that box and the antenna can be installed standalone. As well, you can look to add the SmartSense, which is essentially a machine learning computer that sits dedicated in your cabinet. That's the device that actually processes all of our different classifications for multimodal aspects of classification and detection. And that basically feeds the information to the SmartView 360, which is a 4K camera, a single point 360-degree camera that essentially goes up about 30 odd feet above your intersection on a signal pole or mast arm. And having the SmartLink there really allows all of this information to go back into the TrafficLink software platform, and also some of those pieces can go back into your central management system that you may already be using. So with that being said, you can see there's a number of different types of data that we're probably collecting on the SPAT side, on count side, on multimodal behaviors at the intersection. Today, we're really just going to talk about signal maintenance, as it's kind of the the backbone to smart city infrastructure. But obviously, there's a number of different things that we can do with the hardware that's installed. So just to dive a bit deeper into signal maintenance, so this information is really generated from that SmartLink device that we showed earlier. And that device basically can connect to a number of different things. It can connect to your controller, it can connect to UPS backup batteries, conflict monitors, MMUs, any other type of information that you may be looking at gathering from the intersection. We can basically pull that information into our TrafficLink platform, and then also enable that into third-party hardware or third-party software like a central management system or ATMS system. So that's kind of what we're doing with that device. And now what that enables is really the insight and ability to give to maintenance contractors or your signal technicians. So if you're getting things like there's a power loss, or there's a UPS backup batteries in use, your signals are in flash, those types of alerts can be generated and pushed out from that device. to really give you insight into what's happening amongst your network. And I think with that, I believe that brings us to our next poll question.
It does. So before we get into our customer roundtable, of course, there's lots of teams working together within your network. And we wanted to know, how is your working relationship with your IT team on a scale of 1 to 5? So strained, is number 1, can't get anything done. It's not the greatest. We meet somewhere in the middle, good, but room for improvement. And, the ultimate, we have a blissful partnership working hand in hand. So I'll leave that open for a few more seconds as the results come in. Alrighty. And again, a pretty good mix. We have some that are, on the low end, strained, and we're meeting in the middle. 33% of, not the greatest. Let's see if we can improve that. And then it's nice to see that we've got 50% where they're good or in that blissful state. So with that, I'm really excited to open up our customer roundtable and invite Derek and Andrew to join us and pass it back to Carl as soon as I can hide the slide. There we go.
Great, thanks, Shannon.
You bet.
So yeah, so it's good to see there's a number of different things going on with you folks and either challenges or successes with your internal IT departments. Obviously, security and all of that brings great challenges. So we're happy to talk about that a bit later. But now we're going to turn things over to Mr. Derek Lyman. So as Shannon said earlier, Derek is the traffic signal and ITS manager for the Vermont Agency of Transportation. And I think Derek is going to give us a bit of a rundown now on his network and kind of the challenges he's been through and the solutions and things. So I'll turn it over to Derek now, and just want to say thank you both, Derek and Andrew, so much for taking the time out of your day, out of your very busy days to assist us along in this webinar. So thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, and thanks for making a good, reliable product for us to use. So, yeah, our signal connectivity strategy and our signal system itself is, I oversee the whole state of Vermont on state highways, and we currently have 164 traffic signals throughout the state that we own and maintain. I have a 4-person maintenance signal technicians out of kind of 2 different locations in Vermont, so it involves a lot of travel to our, depending on where the signal is and the issues we're having. So a lot of truck time to get to, sometimes relatively simple issue as a detector false call or no call. That's something that could be easily remedied with remote communications and certainly a camera to visualize your field issue. So our connectivity started in about our first connections were in 2013. We had a small adaptive project, just two intersections, just putting our toe in the water a little bit. We didn't really get much connection value out of it. We were, only connected to the adaptive product, and didn't really, it served its purpose to the vendor, and we weren't really in a operations management state at that time. And then a couple years later, we kind of developed a traffic signal management plan. I did a Scantor peer exchange with a couple other states and a municipality in Georgia. and basically my eyes were opened up of what you can do with signal comms, signal performance measures. That kind of kickstarted us, and we went down the road of buying a couple of cellular modems through our IT department. We have a separate agency now, but at the time we had folks embedded in our agency that handled IT, and it was like a 6 to 12 month long process to get 5 modems deployed in the field, SIM cards, a VPN tunnel into our state network. It was just brutal. It was just, it was outside. The folks, our folks that were working on this this project was, they were working on in network closets and PC support. So this was kind of out of their realm, and it was a struggle the whole way. And then when I was kind of presented with MileVision option in 2015, 2016, we worked with IT to kind of, showed them the network diagrams, the firewall, the security, the cloud storage that, that our IT folks didn't have to maintain. And they were kind of all in at that point. They were like, well, if we can set up one VPN tunnel and you can work with the vendor to, add signals on as you need, then we're all for that. So once that started, it kind of opened the gates for me of getting, we started off with 2 signals connected in 2015, and now we're, I think almost over between 75 and 80, depending on the day. So, about 45% of our network's currently connected. We had 1%, 5 years ago. So, SmartLink's been a huge help with that. We currently have just over 30, and definitely looking to build out more. I got 20 in the garage bay ready to go out in the field right now. So, they were very instrumental with working with my IT folks to make them comfortable with what they were providing and clearly understand the network scenarios that we were dealing with. And yeah, once they sold it to IT for me, that was really, really helpful, because I can handle some small networking, but I'm certainly no cloud expert. And so yeah, it was a good partnership, and yeah, we've kind of been going on ever since. So
Great. Thanks very much, Derek. Did you have anything else you wanted to discuss, or that seems good for an overview? I know I've got a couple questions.
Yeah, I think I can get into like how we like physically got started. We started with like a small deployment. I think I bought 5 just to get comfortable. I think I provided one to a contractor that we had a simple note in the plans that said, contractors shall provide remote signal communications, very open-ended. Contractor was potentially pulling a change order request, and then I was like, well, why don't you just try sticking this, MileVision thing out there, and we'll see how that works. And within an hour, it was installed, and we had remote access to the controller, our detection equipment, and it was just seamless. And after going 6 to 12 months with my IT folks trying to get 4 or 5 modems out in the field, it was like a real game changer for me. We put a 3 intersection deployment with some help from MileVision staff, just kind of get our feet wet, get us used to the installation. And then yeah, once we got the tunnel built, it was just easily expanded from there. It's, I don't know, from order to deployment is probably almost 30 days. From I don't know if that's, I don't want to speak for your product in inventory right now if you can provide that, but it seemed very fast at times compared to the other parts of the industry where it's 8 to 12 week lead time on some things. So yeah, no, definitely streamline my communication build out, and I plan to, we're at 45% connectivity. I'm planning on 90, so I have another 80 to go in the next couple of years. So yeah, definitely MileVision is going to be part of that scenario for the foreseeable future.
Great. Well, thank you so much for such a detailed overview there. Really appreciate it. So I guess I've got a couple of questions that kind of come up. I know, you're discussing about security, and generally, there's a lot of concern from IT or the user when dealing with a managed communications piece. So I guess just wanted to make sure that, obviously through the process, you felt that security was being met on kind of all of those fronts from IT and your side.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think during our detailed diagram discussions, all the protocols, we're checking the boxes for our IT folks, level 3 switches and all that, and everybody was very happy with what was being presented, and it kind of exceeded, met and exceeded our, their expectations for security for sure.
Great. Yeah, thanks. That's good to hear. And then I guess, as your team is pretty comfortable with the solution, obviously it seems like it's a pretty simple process, from our side, in terms of getting you connected, but from your side, can that be improved at all? How do you think getting that connectivity out to more intersections, is that, as you said, it's about 30 days or so? It seems to be pretty fast compared to other systems. But yeah, just wanted to understand how that works for you as you're scaling up to 90% plus connectivity.
Yeah, no, I think the software platform has improved a lot. I mean, I didn't really have any faults with it in the beginning. You guys just continue to evolve your platform. So yeah, it's very user friendly to add devices. They're already kind of pre-populated when you order a batch. Yeah, no, it's pretty seamless. Yeah, I don't really have much to add for improvement. Yeah, time frames are exceptional based on compared to the industry. Yeah, I
Great.
can't really.
No, that's good. Totally fine. Thanks very much. I guess as talking about the software platform, and obviously you have your core group of users there. Do you see any additional stakeholders that you're targeting to kind of bring on to use some of these other features? Maybe if it's ATS-PM data, if you're working with an engineering firm or someone to do retiming. Do you see any interest or kind of action towards getting other stakeholders involved?
Yeah. So the nice thing about your product is it's easily, at least for our contracting purposes, it's easily to add into a set of plans because it's like an off-the-shelf solution that a contractor can order, procure on their own, and install on their own, and then it's ready to be tied into our network. And Vermont right now, we have one current project and one future project where a municipality is going to technically own the units being installed, but they're kind of new to the signal management game and new to ATS-PMs for sure. So setting up some sort of a jurisdictional boundaries, kind of, we may have access to all of our signals, they would have access to their too, and we can kind of have a joint system so we could support them, but they maintain kind of ownership of that. Yeah, that's, I think, something we're looking to do in the in the upcoming year, and just being able to get alerts on, signal performance and stuff like that, aside from being in Flash,
Nice.
using the
Nice.
SPMs as powerful as they are.
Okay, great. Yeah, sounds great. And yeah, we're more than happy to help with that as you continue to expand the the data availability out to others. So yeah, that's what we're all about, of course. So yeah, thank you very much. I think at this point we'll definitely look to turn it over to Andrew, but Derek, I think we've got some questions definitely probably coming in from the audience a bit later as well. So we'll look to have you back on the line. So thanks very much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. So with that, I think we're actually, sorry, Andrew, before we get you going, we've got another poll question here.
We do, and that one is, who in your agency is responsible for maintaining the comms network? So your team, your IT staff members, the IT team, so an external team or a shared resource, a consultant, your team, non-IT, or just completely other. We know that cities and municipalities and agencies have all different flavors of those supporting, so we just want to get a sense. All right, I see them coming in. I'll give it a few more seconds. I'll close it out and we'll share those results. So again, a good mix with the IT team and an external source or a shared resource taking up the bulk of the percentage there, in addition to another 20% having a consultant come on board.
Okay, good. Yeah, nice to see. Obviously different size of teams. Some have their own folks on staff that can do these things, and obviously there's others that require a dedicated contractor for these types of things. So yeah, just on the MyoVision side, we're happy to expose that information to really whoever it is, whether it's your internal team or others. We're open in that sense. So yeah, great, good question there. All right, and I think with that, then now we're on to Mr. Andrew Vischio. So Andrew, as Shannon mentioned before, is the Director of Traffic Engineering at Jersey City. And Andrew, I'll let you kind of take it away from here. Again, thanks very much for taking the time out of your day to be with us here.
I had myself muted. You're very welcome, Carl. It's nice to speak with you. Yeah, so my name is Andrew Vischio. I am the Director of Traffic Engineering for the City of Jersey City. Our population is around 300,000 people. We have approximately 280 signalized intersections throughout the city. The initial problem that we were trying to solve for was just basic connectivity with our signals. We had no remote access to them, and primarily looking to have connectivity to do simple things like traffic signal retiming. And we were starting from square one, so we had been looking into different solutions. And the first thing that jumped out to us about the MyoVision system was that it was completely wireless. And we had an opportunity to develop a connective system without any significant infrastructure underground or overhead. The name, the company MyoVision, also came with a great reputation, having been in the industry for around 10 years. It's a company that's been at the forefront of traffic count technology. So from that perspective, it was kind of a trusted name and was one of the reasons why we gave them, we just bought one piece of equipment that we installed at one intersection to start. We procured that with capital funds. It was under the bid threshold, so it was pretty easy to procure. We used a sole source procurement method for that one intersection. And from there, we kind of made the decision to expand. We're currently at around 60 signals that have MyoVision equipment on them throughout the city. So, you know, roughly 20% of our traffic signals. And I would say we got to that number in like 2 or 3 years over, you know, small gradual deployments, you know, 15, 20 here or there. We've been primarily acquiring them through our operations budget, which we have a certain amount each year to maintain and improve our traffic signals. So that's how we've been able to expand. You know, we started out with the goal of remote connections for traffic signal timing optimization and things like that, but really what we're evolving into using this equipment for is support for a lot of our roadway improvement projects, particularly on the safety improvement front. We recently adopted the Vision Zero initiative a couple of years ago. So all of our projects are focused on safety. So we've been conducting a lot of road diets, installing a lot of protected bike lanes. All of those projects come with some pretty significant traffic impacts. So having the MyoVision deployment at strategic locations throughout the city and along those roads that we're improving really helps us to monitor the traffic impacts and see whether or not we need to make adjustments to accommodate the changed travel patterns. So that's a brief summary of where we are right now, and I think going forward, something that I'm excited to dig into a little bit more is some of the safety metrics that MyoVision offers. Yeah, that's pretty much where we are, Carl.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. I know that brings up a couple of questions, but yeah, certainly seems like you guys are doing a lot with the equipment, and yeah, really exciting to follow along. I guess coming to mind as you mentioned, you know, you have these kind of very forward-thinking campaigns. You've got Vision Zero. I know you have an open data initiative as well. Can you kind of elaborate on how having these different types of ongoing data, whether it's, you know, counts or access to performance measures, how that helps additional stakeholders or folks that really need and can benefit from access to that data?
Yeah, so I think having the equipment out there gives us the confidence that we'll be able to monitor the impacts of these various projects and allows us to do them quickly and efficiently, as opposed to, you know, a traditional method where we would have to send out staff to the field to, you know, conduct travel time runs or collect traffic volumes. It's something that, you know, with a few clicks, we have access to historical data, which will allow us to, you know, compare what exists now versus what existed previously. And that allows us to report back to various stakeholders, government officials, constituents on the status of these projects and whether or not they're successful, and what our plans are to improve them going forward.
Great. Yeah, that's really good to hear. And I guess as you know, as the system, it's kind of acting as like a living, breathing system out there. You see how it's evolving. with these additional features? And I guess, can you speak to a bit more on the fact that, you know, currently you're using certain parts of it, but with these newer features, what that will allow you to hopefully achieve?
Yeah, sure. So I think the one of the biggest things has been the introduction of I think it's still being beta tested, but the bike traffic counts, which are a great tool for us to convey to the public the ridership on these new bike lanes. So we partnered with we have an Office of Innovation in the city, so it's a small group of people who can manage kind of unique projects like this. And they were able to, you know, pretty easily work with the MyoVision staff to connect to the continuous traffic volume counts through the MyoVision platform, and we're able to publish those, you know, almost real time, showing that bike counts on a handful of our different corridors where we have protected bike lanes and we have MyoVision equipment. So that's really helpful to have a conversation with the public and say, you know, here are these new bike lanes, and you know, ridership is high and much higher than it was even before the bike lanes were installed. Another interesting feature that was recently rolled out is I think it's called a workspace platform that is really intuitive, and it helps helps us develop, I guess, and keep track of small projects where we can, you know, prepare graphs and charts and for various kind of traffic signal metrics. And yeah, another great feature, I guess the last thing I'll touch upon is the maintenance alerts that we receive through our MyoVision devices. It's really helpful for our signal maintenance staff. We contract that out, so they're not always in the city. So I just had a conversation with you know, our project manager on that front, who was in the city for a different reason, was about to head out to go to another call, and got the notification that a signal in the city was on flash, and he was able to hit that before he got out of town. So yeah, those are some cool features.
Great. Yeah, that's great to hear, Andrew. Well, yeah, thank you so much for the overview here. I'm sure we've got a couple questions in from the audience. So maybe we'll open up some of these to both you and Derek. I think one of them is more on, looks to be, so the power of remote communications and ability to log into this system in this new world of COVID, and you know, people are working from home some of the time, or they're going into the office, you know, a day or two of the week. So yeah, I guess in summary, how are your teams adapting to using the technology to monitor these events from different office spaces?
Yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Sure. So it's been incredibly helpful. You know, we had to work completely remotely for 3 or 4 months at the beginning of last year, and you know, the thought never really even crossed my mind whether or not I would have, you know, access to all the data that MyoVision offers. It's, you know, it's always been a web login. It's you know, a pretty seamless platform, easy to run on any type of computer. So whether it's, you know, your work computer or a laptop, and you know, on the maintenance side of things, it's something that the crews in the field can access through their phones. So, you know, not just getting alerts through their phones, but even when they're, you know, installing the new type of equipment, they're able to log in and real time figure out if the installation is up and running and successful.
Good. Derek, any additional points there?
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. The alerts have been huge for our staff. You know, my team's really starting to see the benefit of, you know, logging in remotely. Now that, I mean, we spent a lot of work, you know, getting our signals to a safe operation of not having wiring shorts and other emergencies. But so now, you know, it's getting more detection complaints, no calls, stuck calls, all stuff that can be monitored remotely. So yeah, my team's all getting pretty versed in the value of the communications, and yeah, just usability. Yeah, do a lot on the phone. I mean, you can remote front panel from the phone, you know, hopefully not when you're driving, but like, you know, you know, I could just, you know, I got 2 little kids, and I'm working from home, you know, and like, you know, if you can provide a status update for one of your crew members en route, you know, they can just give them tell them where to look, and, you know, give them some advice in 5 minutes, you know, that used to not be possible, or take, you know, a half an hour to fire up the work laptop or whatever. So yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, good. Great. Yeah, I guess, you know, I don't think we built that kind of cross-functional alerting features, you know, with a global pandemic in mind, but obviously it kind of enables with that, you know, web login, it enables you to access it wherever it is. So yeah, I trust, hopefully it's been easier for the teams in this different day and age. Yeah, I guess, Shannon, did we have any other questions come in, or does that seem to be?
Yeah, no, we've got a few, and these are mostly for you, Carl. So I'll ask these. So can you clarify if the connection style for SmartLink system is wireless via SIM cards or hardwired with Ethernet fiber installed underground linking the cabinet?
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a good question. So the turnkey communications that we offer is actually a SIM card. It does roam onto the Verizon network. So that's essentially the US cell coverage that we're providing over LTE. But that being said, if you do have, you know, a fiber ring or a fiber island of connected signals, we can also leverage that existing fiber connectivity or even radio connectivity that exists there. So basically the answer is we can either use our built-in turnkey communications, or we can leverage the existing comms that may be out there. Hopefully that answers the question.
And another question is the detection done all via cameras with TrafficLink?
Yes, so the single point video detection camera that we have, that's basically what is running our video detection. That's you can think of it as the eye to see all of those different zones. We can configure up to about 100 different detection zones, and those can be, you know, across your 4 or 5 approaches, whatever it is. And then the SmartSense device really helps us through machine learning and artificial intelligence identify the different objects within those zones. So not only for counting, but also for detecting. That's kind of that machine learning and artificial intelligence helps us identify those different objects as they're in those zones, and then obviously place calls to the controller on that side of it. And generally, detection's done over SDLC. We can actuate over GPIO or like right into the backplane of the controller cabinet, and then also through ABCD as well. So there's a number of different options for placing the actuations.
Great. And then there was a question here, a request for us to actually showcase the dashboard within TrafficLink. I don't, Carl, I'll leave this up to you. I don't think we were going to pull that up, but we can definitely reach out to you afterwards and showcase the dashboard, unless Carl, you feel like we could do that in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
A little impromptu.
Yeah, sure. No, it's all good. So I'm just logging into TrafficLink here. I guess Andrew, Derek, do you mind if we use one of your networks for this one?
Not at all.
Yeah, well,
Sure,
you can go
sure.
with Andrews. I got some dirty laundry on there that nobody needs.
Okay. Okay, cool. So this is the TrafficLink platform here. I've just accessed it. I have kind of, access to all the different hundreds of organizations. I'll just pull open the Jersey City location here. So this is actually the live view of Andrew's network here. So you can see all of the different intersections here that are installed. There's, a number of corridors here. There's Communipaw, Grand, Jersey Ave, Montgomery, I believe, and essentially this is kind of the live view of the signals right now. In terms of the alerts and connectivity, I've just opened up this dashboard here. It looks like there's a couple alerts ongoing right now. Andrew, I'm sure you're aware of these. Looks like there might be a power loss issue in one of the cases. Some devices unavailable, but basically we allow the ability to get insight into exactly what's happening in the network in real time. So that's kind of the view from that side of it. And then from there we can go, further into whatever intersection that may be of interest. So I'll just click on this one, for example. There's a power loss event here. I think that's probably one of the older intersections. But maybe I'll go back to the map and I'll just pull open one of these here.
Yeah, Grand Street would probably be a good example.
Sure. So we've got Monmouth and Grand here. In terms of the live kind of view of the intersection, this is all of that high-res SPAT data that's being collected by the SmartLink device. So as you can see, in terms of the this kind of map overview here, these are the zones that are being detected with vehicles. So those would basically go purple as a vehicle enters over that zone. You have the kind of real-time different phases. You can look at in this case, there's pedestrian signals that are firing away. These are the detectors that we see. If you have existing loops as well, those would populate there as well. And then we have a couple different views. I think just for time's sake, I'll show the timing diagram. This shows, the real-time phasing of every single phase that you have, also the PED phases, and then the vehicle channels for detection. And then this information is all stored indefinitely in the cloud. So you can go back to, yesterday at 10 o'clock in the morning. You can go back to 3 years ago if the device was installed by then. So really, you get insight into exactly what's happening from that standpoint. In terms of the signal phasing timing information, that's also available over the data API as well. if you wanted to ingest that data. I guess I'll try to tap into one of the live views here so we can see what's happening in real time here. So this is actually connecting right to the camera in this case that's been deployed. You can see we have a number of different zones set up here. We've got some pedestrian crossing zones, there's some vehicle detection zones, kind of on these approaches here. And so as a vehicle or pedestrian or cyclist basically enter any of these zones, will kind of identify them with a little blue box, and that would basically count. That one there had a C over it, so that's a cyclist. That one looks like there might be some pedestrians coming. There's another cyclist going through. But basically, the camera in real time is actually tracking all of the individual objects as they fully transit the intersection. So you'll notice for counting purposes, in this top right corner, as vehicles transit or cyclists or pedestrians transit the intersection, you'll notice that there's a purple line which kind of pulses bold after the vehicle has completed its entire movement. And that basically happens a fraction of a second later, so that we can verify that that vehicle actually did turn left instead of, maybe it was going to turn left and then went through. So it basically just adds to our turning movement counts there. And yeah, essentially we classify all of these features. I'm just gonna exit out of the view here, and then we can jump into kind of where the data is stored from that standpoint. So we have a couple different views here. This is actually the intersection health overview, which is part of our ATSPM section and workspace. And then we also have a dedicated workspace to create charts. And then there's also the counting function here, where you can go out and collect all of that, those counts that have occurred. The nice thing about the connectivity piece here is that it enables the data to be stored indefinitely. So it's at the user's fingertips, and those users can be managed by someone like Andrew, who can go in and add his different traffic engineers or add his maintenance contractors or whatnot. So yeah, I think that's a very quick overview of this system, but more than happy to go more in depth.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you for that was great, especially with me putting you on the spot like that. So
oh, good.
Appreciate that. We are at the top of the hour, so if there are a few other questions that we'll reach out directly to answer them for you. And if anyone is interested in getting a more in-depth a demo of TrafficLink platform or a discussion with Carl or any one of our sales reps, we will be in touch in the next couple of days. We'll send out a recording of this webinar, as well as our contact information, and we'd be happy to schedule a demo or further conversation with everyone that's interested. So I appreciate everyone's time today. I really want to express our thanks again to Andrew and Derek for coming on and taking the time out of their busy days to talk about their deployments. And thank you, Carl, for hosting.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Andrew and Derek and Shannon as well. Really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for joining today.
Yeah, have a great day. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.